What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here at JGilbo11, breaking down some GPP picks for tonight's slate. 15 games. I'm not tremendously worried about ownership tonight. I think there's a couple teams that we'll be kind of keying in on that will be popular. But overall, I mean, second half here, looking for some teams to kind of get jump-started, looking at the Cubs to get jump-started, moving on the road to Baltimore, getting the DH, also getting a nice park factor boost as well. But as far as kind of going games through here, I mean, we're going to talk high ownership plays real quick, but also high upside plays. Seattle's going to be a popular team tonight. -181 road favorites, run total up over 5.5. James Shields, he's, struggled really tremendously against lefties. You got some of these guys who have really good history off them as well, Seager and Cano. Given the fact that they're both extremely underpriced, Seager, 3-3 on DraftKings, Cano 4-2. I believe FanDuel is over 3-2. Seager's 2-7 there. They're probably going to be pretty popular on tonight's slate, but I think the ownership play is still there to get some exposure even in turns. But you can also make the case for fading in that as well if you're kind of hoping to play that ownership angle, because I think 20+% is probably going to where you're going to see those guys at, especially Cano, probably even higher at those prices, given the fact that he's had a little bit more of a history of upside compared to Seager this season. So expect them to be popular. I do expect Washington to be popular as well. Harper, Murphy, Rendon, Zimmerman, Goodwin, those guys against Tim Adelman, just in great American ballpark. But outside of that, I mean, I don't see any tremendously popular teams that I'm going to be, expecting 25-30% ownership. So, kind of jumping into the contrarian plays here, into some ballparks where maybe people aren't going to be targeting. Looking at PNC first, Garrett Cole, this guy's just been absolutely awful against lefties. Strikeout rate's been right around 21%, but outside of that, I mean, 31% line drive rate allowed, 362 WOBA. That kind of it puts Matt Carpenter in play. I know this is a guy that a lot of people won't target at first base, gonna get him at sub 10% ownership, but I just can't get past how bad Cole is against lefties this year. And Carpenter obviously leading off has seen an enormous jump in terms of just power and overall DFS potential of late. So you look over the last month, I mean, ISO over 200, Psalm got off to a really nice stretch there. Carpenter's just a guy I'll kind of continue to look at here. Cooled off in the home run department over his last 10 or so games, but I don't mind kind of jumping back on board here, especially on a warm night in PNC. But outside of that, though, I mean, you're probably not going to find a lot of other lefties. I think Dexter Fowler's back tonight, but probably not a guy that I'm tremendously considering. I think Baltimore, Chicago is a good place where you can find a ton of runs. It'll be semi-popular. Mike Montgomery, Kevin Gossman. You look at Gossman, this is a guy who's, found a little bit of form of late, but has really struggled this year. Camden Yards is a great ballpark. You look at the lefties in this lineup, and ISO's over 200. They're all kind of boomer bust, but, Schwarber, Ian Happ, Anthony Rizzo, obviously Chris Bryant from the right side, but Ben Zobrist. These are guys I want to target tonight. I'll talk more about them as a stack in the stacking pod, but I like the options here tonight. I love the ballpark factors. I love the weather. Gossman has struggled for the most part this season, so good spot for the Cubbies to kind of break on board. I think they're moderately priced. You can get some cheap, you can get some high-priced guys. So I think the upside's there. I think the tournament upside is as well. As far as the other side goes, I mean, I'm Baltimore. A couple of guys I do like to consider against lefties, obviously, Manny Machado. Still on the cheaper side, 337 WOBA against lefties this year, 236 ISO. He's a guy I expect to kind of come around the second half as well. This is a good spot to kind of jump on board those struggling guys who are due for some positive regression. Wellington Castillo, he's going to be a popular play probably behind the dish given his cheap price tag and his history against lefties. Hasn't shown a whole lot of power, but the power is going to be coming. 43% line drive rate off lefties for Wellington Castillo. So definitely going to be looking there. Dodgers Miami, this is kind of a good contrarian spot here tonight because you got a semi-low total. It's around 4.3 for both sides. Brandon McCarthy and Dan Strader are kind of guys that, are just good enough to kind of keep you hesitant on using guys against him. But in terms of upside here, I mean, there's still some big power bats. You look at McCarthy, been a little bit worse off against righties this year. Average ground ball rate, obviously, was dealing with the injury. But, guys like Bohr, Yelich, Stanton still, I still don't mind him against McCarthy, and especially given the fact that the lefties, he doesn't miss a ton of bats with right around 16%. So, contrarian way to go is kind of go with some of the Marlins, but on the Dodgers side, I'm kind of staying away from some of these guys. I mean, Bellinger, Seager are probably going to be a little bit lower than they usually are. Those would probably be the two lefties to really consider in this one, so I'm okay with that. Talked Washington as being the popular one, but I kind of like on the other side with the Reds. The Reds right-handers I expect to be lower owned just because Gio's performed actually decently. But you just look, I mean, still Gio's a guy who does allow some home run potential. Ground ball rate right around 41% against right-handers. ISO up around 180. So, Zach Cozart against lefties, 449 WOBA, 232 ISO. Adam Duvall, 430, 356. Eugenio Suarez, 335, 176. So, these guys have some pop against lefties, and I think they're going to be a little bit lower owned because Duvall, a little bit on the expensive side, but Cozart, Suarez, not badly priced. 4.8 run total there, wind blowing out, near 90s temperatures. So, in terms of that one, I mean, a lot of good offense in this game. I think Cincinnati is going to get overlooked a little bit on tonight's slate just because Gio is still somewhat of a notable name. So, outside of that, I mean, that's a spot where I'm really looking to use. Moving on, I mean, some other games to target. Arizona, Atlanta, near run totals in 5. Arizona gets out of chase where they usually do struggle. This is a spot where against R.A. Dickey, it's just kind of one of those boomer bust situations. I don't know if there's a one-off here that I tremendously like that I'm just kind of going after. On the Atlanta side, Walker's a guy who does struggle a little bit with lefties, has in the past. This is a ballpark that has played really well to lefties, but overall, 316 WOBA allowed to lefties this year. It's got that ground ball rate up a little bit, but obviously Matt Adams, Freddie Freeman, the power left-handed bats are kind of where you want to be targeting. I don't know if I like really anyone else in this lineup. And kind of on the Dodgers side, I mean, no one really has a history against R.A. Dickey, so there's no BVP to really look at, but you can definitely go with a contrarian stack if you want that route. It'll be GPP only for me. Those bats I'm not really looking at in terms of upside, so I kind of don't mind it, but that's about it. Philly, Milwaukee, this is one with pretty notable totals, but I don't know how many people are actually talking about this one today. Once again, I think Seattle is going to be kind of popular, and I think Washington too. But I'm not really overlooking either side of this game. Zach Davies, Nick Pivetta. Pavetta's been a guy. Yeah, he flashed a couple of high strikeout games, but against righties, I mean, he's been really bad. 418 WOBA. So kind of looking at Domingo Santana. Even a Keon Broxton, I don't hate, but obviously the lefties are still somewhat in play here due to the low ground ball rate. The regression's coming. The strikeout rate, yeah, sure, you can make the argument Pavet's kind of that boomer bust guy, but Thames, Travis Shaw, VR is guys to kind of target in this one. Should once again get him at fairly low ownership as well. And on the Philly side, I don't hate some of these bats. I mean, Zach Davies isn't a strong option, 342 WOBA to righties, 356 WOBA to lefties. Freddie Galvis, Aaron Altera, Maikel Franco, who was heating up a little bit before the break, I don't mind. Odubel Herrera. Those are guys that are kind of value bats that you can really fill out a lineup with if you want to go that route. Definitely GPP bats, but, there is some upside with some of those Phillies, so I don't mind them. In terms of my last game that I do want to talk about, I'm not really intrigued with any bats in the late slate. But a game, Royals and Rangers, Martin Perez versus Jason Hamill. I think there's going to be some good one-off spots to go with here. You look at the Texas bats. I mean, Hamill's been a guy who's been a little bit reverse this year, 350 WOBA, but also 322 WOBA to righties. I still think the lefties here are in play. Really low ground ball rate, home run potential here, even in Kansas City, is not that bad. Upper 80s weather, wind blowing in just a little bit, but we've seen Kansas City actually play somewhat small and kind of get overlooked during the summertime. So, guys like Chu, Mazzara, Beltre, Adore, all in play. Carlos Gomez, Andrus as well. I think Texas is kind of sneaker. They've been a little bit popular before the break for the last kind of week or so when they were at home, but tonight I think they'll kind of go a little bit overlooked. So on the Royals side, I mean, Perez is a guy I don't stack against, but I think you can take some one-offs against. Pretty neutral ground ball rate, but right-handers, 354 WOBA. You can still look at Bonifacio, Whit Merrifield, Lorenzo Cain are two options. Like Salvador Perez here, good upside guy. If you want to take a boomer bust risk in Soler, I don't hate that either. So that's going to wrap things up. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com, check out the great tools and content.